Like, let's be 100% honest here. How dumb do you think we are to have something like this, especially in the wake of all the things that we've seen with Andrew Tate? We've seen all the things with Johnny Depp in the media. How stupid do you think we are to think that we're going to fall for this playbook again? What's up, world? Welcome back to Cancer Thoughts. It's your boy, Better Days. Just when I was starting to believe that we were finally done with the Me Too and all of that, something happened earlier this week that I'm sure you guys have heard about already, but if you haven't, I'm going to tell you about it anyway. Russell Brand is finally being accused of, you know, raping four different women. Even though the women have not been identified, they've been allowed to remain anonymous or whatever. The attempt to try to cancel him is underway, and
they're coming for him.
we're going to be talking about that today. But before we do, you guys already know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button for more content. I'm trying to make sure as many people find this channel as possible. So I need your help in doing that, and it really helps out, guys.
Help your boy out.
I'm going to be showing you guys two clips from Russell Brand's channel today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about it. The first one I'm going to show you guys is of him announcing that these allegations are coming, because I think he was tipped off about it earlier before the stories were actually published. But I'm going to show you guys that clip, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to show you guys the second clip.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack, and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of. And we saw a spate of headlines from media outlets across the world using the same language. I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you, you're getting too close to the truth. Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago there was a spate of articles, Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist, Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me, like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice. I don't mind them using my books and my stand-up to talk about my promiscuous consensual conduct in the past. What I seriously refute are these very, very serious criminal allegations. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to me to be a coordinated attack. Now, I don't want to get into this any further because of the serious nature of the allegations, but I feel like I'm being attacked, and plainly they are working very closely together. We are obviously going to look into this matter because it's very, very serious. In the meantime, I want you to stay close, stay awake, but more important than any of that, if you can, please stay free.
All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is, as he mentioned earlier in there, he was working in the mainstream media. For those of you guys who don't know, Russell Brand was a A-list actor. He was an A-list celebrity. He is the kind of person that legitimately has women throwing themselves at him.
He's that dude. He's that dude. We can't deny it.
So, one, the idea that he would have to resort to forcibly entering a woman's body without her permission is something that's completely asinine to me. And I think that anyone who has a functional brain is like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Now, it doesn't mean it's not possible. Obviously, anything is possible, but it just doesn't make sense that a guy who's wanted by most women in the world would have to force himself onto some women. That's number one. Number two, he said in that video that this these allegations are coming up from like a very, very long time ago. And immediately when I heard that, the first thing that I thought when I was watching this video earlier was, yo, Me Too was a thing that was happening like 3 to 4 years ago. If that was the case, why are we hearing about all of these stories right now?
Make it make sense.
Wouldn't it have made more sense to start talking about it when Me Too was at its peak, where women were coming out left and right saying that they've been abused or assaulted sexually by these different men in power? Why are you coming out about it now? And third of all, it's important to mention this.
Listen up, people.
We're not saying that rape isn't a egregious thing, and we're not saying here that Russell Brand is innocent, but the notion that there are media companies who are deciding what is and isn't true is asinine to me. None of us knows what happened, if there was anything that even happened. The idea that he's being censored on platforms like YouTube, for those of you who don't know, he's been demonetized, I think, as of earlier this week on YouTube. So he's not allowed to make any money off of his content, even though YouTube is making their money off of his content because they haven't taken any of the ads off of his videos. He's just not getting any of that money. So YouTube is still making money off of Russell Brand, but Russell Brand isn't making any money off of Russell Brand, which is wild to me.
There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
But we as a society have no clue what to do with allegations like this, because it's something that I think has us stuck between like a rock and a hard place. Because on the one end, you can't necessarily prove that you were sexually assaulted. So the he says, she says on that is like, okay, but you also can't prove that you didn't sexually assault someone. So I don't think it's fair to choose or like judge and be the arbiter of who is and isn't like telling the truth in these situations, because none of us were there.
We don't know what we don't know.
As they just said earlier, they're anonymous people who have made these claims. We don't know who any of these women are. All we know is that they've made these claims and they're being taken very seriously, because, as they should, because there are rape allegations. But for all we know, these could have been 4 random people that were just brought in off the streets, paid whatever sum of money that they were paid to just say these things about Russell Brand, and they're being taken like as truth and fact. And it's just like the notion that there are people out there in our society that genuinely believe, especially after the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard fiasco, which I think hurt Aquaman 2 tremendously. I don't want to digress a little too much, but especially after that fiasco, the idea that we can just be believing women when it comes to this is ridiculous. That's one. And two, the idea that these social media companies can straight up just like take this dude's content, still run ads on his content, and not share with him any piece of the pie is ridiculous. I think that's in some sense worse than just outright banning him from the platform.
How so?
Because if you're banning him from a platform, then you yourself aren't making any money off of that content that he's making, which is great content. Russell Brand has, I want to say, somewhere close to 7 million subscribers on YouTube, which is like a lot of subscribers if you didn't know.
Like a lot.
But it's like, so you're telling me that I can't make money off of my content, but you can make money off of my content and not give me any like sort of cut in this? It's, in a sense, it's almost like, one, they learned from the Andrew Tate fiasco, which is like, well, if you just outright ban him, you might just make him more powerful, because that's exactly what they did with Andrew Tate. He's now more famous than he's ever been before. But you're now in a win-win situation if you're the social media companies, because you, one, get to look like you're not censoring someone. 2, you get to make the money that you want to make. And 3, you have plausible deniability in the fact that, even though, obviously, I'm going to show you guys the letter that was drafted to these social media companies. I don't think this letter was drafted by the British Parliament or the social media companies. I actually think the government is working in reverse. I think the government is working for the social media companies. But these letters and these accusations to me are just like, yo, how stupid do you guys really think we are?
Stupid. Incredibly stupid.
Like, let's be 100% honest here. How dumb do you think we are to have something like this, especially in the wake of all the things that we've seen with Andrew Tate? We've seen all the things with Johnny Depp in the media. How stupid do you think we are to think that we're going to fall for this playbook again? And it's funny for me to say that, well, it's funny for me to think about, because Russell Brand is somebody who has been very, very vocal about his disdain for the mainstream media. Jordan Peterson has also been someone who's very, very vocal about his disdain for the government, the media space, and how they spin lies. Joe Rogan has been someone that's been very, very vocal about his disdain for the media. All of these guys, Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand being our most recent examples of it, but literally all of these guys have faced some sort of like cancellation attempt in the past. And it's just funny to me that like people aren't like there's a legitimate like segment of our population who has seen these things happen time and time again, and they're just like not registering that this is a coordinated thing. There are legitimately people, and they call like people like Russell Brand and like people like Tim Pool conspiracy theorists. It's like there are conspiracies in play that are being enacted in real time that we are watching. Like, what do you think the World Economic Forum is? It is legitimately a conspiracy organization that isn't even like masking itself anymore. It's legitimately
Hidden in plain sight.
we all fly out to this economic forum and we decide what direction the world should go in without the consent or the say of the world. It's wealthy people, government officials, all of these people are just meeting up and deciding how you and me should be living our life. Like the fact that this isn't more upsetting to more people to me is just like, what the fuck are you doing in your life right now? Like to think that you're just going to watch this go by and it's not going to affect you in whatever small iota of a way that it will.
Open your eyes.
Now, I'm going to show you guys the next video because, and I haven't even seen this next video, but I'm going to show you guys the next video because I think it's going to illuminate a little bit more some of the situation that Russell Brand is facing right now.
Hello there, you awakening wonders. Obviously, it's been an extraordinary and distressing week, and I thank you very much for your support and for questioning the information that you've been presented with. By now, you're probably aware that the British government have asked big tech platforms to censor our online content, and that some online platforms have complied with that request. What you may not know is that this happens in the context of the Online Safety Bill, which is a piece of UK legislation that grants sweeping surveillance and censorship powers, and it's a law that has already been passed. I also don't imagine you've heard of the Trusted News Initiative. Now, as is often the case when a word like trusted is used as part of an acronym to describe an unelected body, trust is the last thing you should be offering. The Trusted News Initiative is a collaboration between big tech and legacy media organisations to target, control, choke and shut down independent media organisations.
So they're literally telling us that they are in bed with each other in this bill that he just mentioned here. Isn't that a little bit suspicious to some people? Like, okay, so you guys are essentially putting into law that you guys are going to be having communication with each other. And that communication is obviously not going to be made available to the public. So it's like, oh, okay, let's trust these people. And let's be clear about this. He's talking about the UK, but there are things going on in America right now, like bills that are like being introduced to Congress that are legitimately being passed through, that are essentially providing the framework of what he's talking about here. So this isn't something that's just going to be happening in the UK. It's also going to be happening in America. Let that sink in.
Like this one. We'll be talking about that on our show on Monday on Rumble. But just to give you an idea of what the TNI is, this is a quote from one of their spokespeople.
All right, I'm going to pause it really quick there because I want to give props to platforms like Rumble. I want to give props to platforms like Twitter. Even though I don't necessarily think Elon Musk is in it for free speech like he says he is, I'm gonna give kudos to those platforms because they were the two platforms that came out and said we are not banning someone from social media and being able to make money off of their social media without any proof of wrongdoing. Rumble came out with I want to say it's a statement earlier this week that they are unequivocally not going to be banning Russell Brand for allegations. Now, if he gets convicted, which we don't know if he's going to get convicted, it's like I said earlier in the video, it's very dicey with situations like this because whoever is deciding who's telling the truth is like a whimsical person. It's just like, all right, are we going to believe this side of the story or that side of the story? And neither side of the story necessarily can provide any sort of evidence as opposed to like just like a situation like murder or something like that. You can provide evidence of things like murder. Dead body is there. You can't provide evidence for things like rape because the only two people who know exactly what happened there are the two people who are involved in it. In this case, it's four people, so they're going to try to, well, four women and Russell Brand. So they're going to try to say, well, let's take the totality of these four women's claims and Russell Brand's claim that he didn't do it, and let's just like try to like cast aspersions and condemn him for those, which is like ridiculous because obviously you can just pay anybody. But platforms like Rumble and Twitter, I'm gonna call it Twitter. I'm not calling it X. I don't like that name. I don't give a shit about that name, but are not banning him for doing so. So I want to give kudos to them for that before we continue with this video.
The actual real rivalry now is not between the BBC and CNN globally. It's actually between all trusted news providers and digital platforms.
It's funny how, and I know I just stopped it very quickly there. It's funny how these companies think of themselves as trusted. Facebook literally sells our information and has been hit with massive lawsuits that they've settled on for selling our information. Should we be trusting platforms like Facebook, who owns Instagram? Should we be trusting the media, who has been proven time and time again to be lying to us on a regular basis? The notion that these guys are, it's always the people who are untrustworthy who are calling themselves trustworthy.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king.
Is that like obvious to everyone here? Like people like Russell Brand and people like Joe Rogan, people like Jordan Peterson, they're not coming out here saying that they're trustworthy people. They know they're trustworthy people, so they don't have to say it out loud. These people are legitimately saying out loud, oh, we are trustworthy, so you guys should believe us in anything we say. Like, really? How stupid do they think we are?
I was born at night, but not last night.
Like, legitimate, how dumb do they think we are?
It's clear that these organizations collaborate in constructing narratives, whether that's around the war or the pandemic, and of course there are other examples. And it's very clear to me that we have to be very, very cautious indeed. That's why I'm asking you to follow me on Rumble. Rumble have made a clear commitment to free speech, and Rumble is the primary platform that we will be streaming from. We'll be back this Monday, and as usual, we'll be talking about deep state and corporate collusion and how ordinary democracy is anathema now, how it's shut down, ignored and avoided. We'll be talking about a military-industrial complex that is able to facilitate and start wars that seem sometimes to be little more than money laundering operations. And that's with all respect to the hundreds of thousands of victims of the numerous ongoing wars in the world at the moment. We'll be talking about the role of Big Pharma and how Big Pharma have been able to influence government policy around the world and how they've been able to evade due liability and necessary scrutiny, how they've been able to avoid media investigation that perhaps ought be due them. And of course, we'll be talking about media corruption and censorship. So please follow me on Rumble, because that's the only way that we can keep our voice. You can go to rb.rumble.com to support me directly and keep me and our channel independent. And I need your support now more than ever, and more than I ever imagined I would. So follow me, support our channel if you can, if it's within your means. But more important than any of that is that you please, if you can, stay free.
Oh, man. Yo, shouts to Rumble, man. I know,
I can't thank you enough.
man. Oh. So here is somebody who has legitimately turned his life around. As I said earlier in the video and as I displayed, Russell Brand was legitimately like he was a cokehead, like he was a drug addict. He was on heroin at a certain point. He was a sex addict. So all of these things are true. And this man, and I don't think most people know this, but this man is a married man. He has children now. He's legitimately turned his life around. And the minute that he starts doing that and starts telling people that maybe what they're seeing is not necessarily what's happening under the hood, he starts getting attacked.
That sounds strange to you?
Like, I don't, if people cannot get it within their thick skulls that this might be a thing that is just like completely conspiratorial. And I'm gonna say this again because what he said in the previous video still stands in that, oh, well, the British Parliament wrote these letters to these social media companies. The British Parliament is not writing these letters to these social media companies.
They are pawns.
Let's call a spade a spade. Let's be 100% honest about this. They're not the ones drafting these. The British Parliament and I want to say parliaments all over the world, U.S. government included, all of them are pawns for big tech, big pharma, the military industrial complex, as he just said earlier. All of that shit is connected. And what he said earlier in that video, and I'm going to end this video here, is that platforms like Rumble are going to become more important than ever in the next coming years because obviously YouTube thinks now that it's too big to fail because they think that they can start censoring and telling people what they can and can't see and start like telling people what they should or shouldn't think.
They're abusing their power.
What they should or shouldn't be able to say, stuff like that. So platforms like Rumble, and I think Rumble is going to start increasing in popularity the more and more these kinds of acts make themselves manifested. But the last thing that he wants to say that he said there that I want to say is I'm going to be coming out. Well, I'm going to probably be coming out with that video either before or after this video comes out. But I came out with a video with regards to talking about like voting and like the military and people who enter the military and the draft and stuff like that. And what Russell Brand says here ties into that notion that I was talking about in the previous video because if I'm going to be going to war and risking my life for a country against my will, I'm not going to be doing it so that rich dickheads can stay rich. It's just not happening. And he said, and obviously I don't want to cast aspersions upon the American military. I do respect the people who are in the military right now. I respect the people who have served in war. I respect all those people because without those people risking their lives to do what they do, we wouldn't be able to live in the greatest country in the world. And I do 100% believe that we are currently living in the greatest country in the world. Now, I'm an immigrant, and I've said that before. So my fealty will always be to Nigeria, which is my home country, and I will always have more love in my heart for Nigeria than I do for America, just because that was where I was born. But Nigeria is a shithole, and America is moving toward being a shithole, especially with cities like Chicago, where I currently reside right now, which is a complete and utter shithole. But we need to start having conversations like this, and Rumble is obviously opening his arms and welcoming everybody to have those types of conversations. And I think things like Twitter are going to become more important, things like Rumble are going to become more important, and whatever the other platforms that come up in the future who are for free speech as they say they will be for, will legitimately take up the mantle for all of this. Because I think companies like YouTube and by extension Google, because Google controls YouTube in case you didn't know, but companies like that, companies like Facebook and Instagram that are in bed with the governments of the world, I think they've started to misjudge the influence that they have. While that influence is incredibly massive, they started to think like Disney is gonna start learning in the coming future with their shitty movies and their shitty agendas. But like companies like Bud Light have learned, you're not too big to fail. You're still consumer oriented businesses. And the more you continue to try to tell the consumer what they should and shouldn't want, the more you're going to turn us off to your product. If you liked what you heard today, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like what you heard, thanks for watching the whole video. Consider leaving a comment in the comment section and telling me exactly what you disagreed with. Either way, thanks for joining me on this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.